McVay's not in it to rebuild. He wants to win championships. Stafford helps him do that. He's one of the best closers in the business. So the fact that the Rams were able to keep him around with this young defense that's only going to get better, I think helps them kind of stay in that conversation as one of the teams that could compete for a Super Bowl.
Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast. I am your host, Dave Helman, and just as we all predicted, another show with so much breaking news, so much new information as NFL Combine Week continues in Indianapolis. I am back in Los Angeles, but we have so much more to get to. We started the week speculating about Matthew Stafford, and here at the end of the week, we have our answer. It sounds like he will remain a Los Angeles Ram. That and so many other new developments coming out of Indianapolis. Our guy, Eric Williams of FoxSports.com, was in Indy all week. He was gracious enough to hop on with me to talk about the Stafford news, talk about some of the prospects working out in Indianapolis this week, as well as any other tidbits he might have picked up during a busy week at the Combine. That coming up later. We also talking to Miami Dolphins offensive tackle Terron Armstead about the future of his career, weighing the decision whether he wants to return for 2025 or retire after a very decorated career with both the Saints and Dolphins. Really fun conversation with Terron coming up as well. It's a fantastic show. Appreciate you tuning in. Let's jump into it. Well, Eric, I said it before we started recording, but it is very rare that the news cycle of the NFL helps you out. And that is exactly what we got, because as I was sitting down, logging onto Zoom to talk to you from Indianapolis, we get word from all of the insiders, all the news sources around the NFL. After a 4-day flirtation, Matthew Stafford is going to remain an LA Ram. Sounds like, I don't know the parameters. We'll see what it looks like, but he and the Rams have agreed to some sort of restructured deal. I would imagine there's going to be a little bit of a pay bump and probably some extra time on the deal to bring down the cap charge. But what matters for right now, at least, is that Stafford's staying put in LA. We're not going to see a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback traded to the Giants or the Raiders or wherever the heck else it might have happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was the main thing that people were talking about here in Indianapolis, to be honest, when you went around and, either talked to other reporters or coaches or GMs. I mean, that was the number one thing is, was Stafford going to move or not? It looks like the Rams allowing him to go out there and kind of figure out what his market value was helped, I think, and kind of these two sides reaching a deal. It was surprising, to be honest, that, Les Snead and McVay allowed Stafford to go out there and kind of shop himself, essentially. I think you kind of go back to when they moved Jared Goff. They weren't as transparent with Goff when they traded him. And I think that helped in this regard, because I felt like McVay, said it himself that he wanted to be more transparent in this instance. So there wasn't any hard feelings, and that everybody kind of knew what was going on. And ultimately it helps the Rams, keep Stafford. Stafford is really McVay on the field in terms of how he thinks about offense and the decision-making. So it was always a little odd that McVay really allowed it to get to this point. McVay's not in it to rebuild. He wants to win championships. Stafford helps him do that. He's one of the best closers in the business. So the fact that the Rams were able to keep him around with this young defense that's only going to get better, I think helps them kind of stay in that conversation as one of the teams that could compete for a Super Bowl.
I wrote about it literally yesterday as I was leaving Indianapolis. Like, it made sense until it didn't, right? Because, like, yeah, sure, if you're the Rams, let Matthew Stafford talk to some other teams, get an idea for what he's worth, and say, hey, look, we're not trying to screw you out of any money. Go see what another team is willing to pay you, and we'll talk again. The problem comes in when a team like the New York Giants, which is clearly in disarray, clearly the general manager and the head coach know they've got some work to do to save their job, Clearly,
Mhm.
the owner is upset with the way things go. And all of a sudden, when a team like that has no issue with the price, there was like a 36-hour window where I was like, holy crap, is this really going to happen because the
Yeah.
Rams won't be able to compete with that? And I'm so happy cooler heads prevailed because look, I will never begrudge a player getting the most amount of money possible, but Matthew Stafford's 37 years old. He's already made a boatload of money. Like he
Yeah.
made so much money playing mediocre football in Detroit. I'm glad that he ultimately decided that the zeros in the bank account weren't the end all be all, because if they were, I wouldn't be surprised if we were talking about something different right now.
I think we'd be talking about Stafford in the silver and black playing for the Las
Also,
Vegas
that
Raiders if it was a monetary decision. I agree. And I never begrudge players for going out there and making the most money that they can because that's what the owners are doing. So if he can make more money somewhere else, he already won a championship and he can, get a different challenge with a different team, totally respect that. But certainly his best chance of winning another Super Bowl is in Los Angeles with one of the best run teams in the NFL, in my opinion, with McVay leading them on the field, and Les does a great job of finding and getting talent to stock that roster. And that this is the team that was just a play away, really, from beating the Eagles. If that game was on a neutral field where there wasn't any snow, I think the Rams had a pretty good chance of winning that game. And so you run it back with that group, you continue to add pieces, get better up front in terms of the offensive line, add some offensive playmakers. You are losing Cooper Cup. So you need another receiver. I think they like the guys that are in the room right now. And I think they're sitting pretty well to be able to compete again in that NFC West.
I think you're absolutely right, and you nailed it. Yeah, I think you probably want to do some work on this offensive line. Rams also gave Jonah Jackson permission to seek a trade this week
Mhm.
during the combine. He kind of fell out of favor in LA this year. Cooper Cup, we'll see what happens with him, but I don't know the way LA's been drafting the last 2 or 3 years. I'm very confident Sean McVay and Les Snead will find a way to add some talent to that roster, especially now that we know that, in my opinion, one of the best 7 or 8 quarterbacks in the league is back in the fold.
The one thing though, I mean, it was a legitimate issue for them was his health. A couple years
True.
ago, he didn't finish out the year, and I think there was some concerns in terms of McVay and the front office. Is he going to be able to stay healthy for another 2 seasons because they have a much younger roster? I think they feel like the window for this group is 3 to 5 years, but how long is Stafford going to be around to chase a title with this young group? And is he going to be able to stay on the field? And they like Jimmy G a lot. He's well liked within the team. I think he transitioned well into terms of what they're doing on offense. And so I think you have to bring Jimmy G as a backup if something does happen to Stafford.
That's totally fair, and you're right. I mean, durability is a concern with Stafford. He played through stuff this year, even though he
Yep.
didn't miss nearly as many games. But to your point, when you're a Jalen Carter swim move away from potentially hosting the NFC Championship game, now is not the time to tinker too much. And I like the idea of Jimmy G stepping in for 2 or 3 games a hell of a lot more than I like the idea of trying to build a contender around Jimmy G. And not trying to throw
You've
him
seen
under
that
the
movie
bus or
before, huh?
anything. Look, I've seen that movie before, and I've seen what it looks like when Matthew Stafford's balling in the playoffs as well. I know which
Mhm.
one I would rather have.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think Jimmy G is great insurance in case Matthew is dinged up throughout the year because you have a guy that can come in and win a game for you. Obviously, he's shown it in his past that he's been able to win big games. To be honest, he's with the Niners obviously when they went to the Super Bowl. But I also agree that Jimmy G probably isn't the guy that you want trying to lead your team back to Super Bowl. I think with what happened in Las Vegas, he's probably cemented his status as a backup at this point.
As long as we're talking about the NFC West, obviously, we were already going to talk about the Seattle Seahawks. I think they're an interesting team regardless. But again, the news cycle really working in our favor here, because as we were getting set to hop on this morning, and there's a lot of smoke this time of year.
Yeah.
The teams are going to cover their asses. Who knows how much veracity there is to any of this, but you're seeing a lot of smoke about the Seahawks potentially,
Yeah.
maybe being interested in trading DK Metcalf. And I'm curious, we don't have to get into like whether or not that happens in the immediate future, but
Sure.
what I'm curious about is, where do you think the Seahawks see themselves? Like, is this a team that is a piece or two away from contending to win that division, which is kind of
Mhm.
how I view them? Or do
Mhm.
you think the Seahawks might have a more big picture approach to this offseason if they are willing to do something like trade Metcalf?
Well, let's answer the DK thing first. John Schneider, the GM for the Seahawks, was asked that at the combine this week. What's going on with DK Metcalf? And he basically said there's nothing going on with him. He's on our team. He's a big, strong guy that we like. And basically, that there wasn't anything behind those rumors that he's out there on the open market. As we know, though, that could change. They also said the same thing about Russell Wilson a couple of years ago, and then all of a sudden he was being traded to the Broncos. So they obviously keep things close to the vest in terms of what's happening with their players. In terms of the Seahawks themselves, I did have a chance to talk to Snyder one-on-one for about 5 or 10 minutes to ask him about exactly that. What's going on with their team, big picture. And he said they want to get back to the identity that they had early on. When I covered that team, I covered Pete for the first 6 years that he was there. And that team, it was about running the football, owning the line of scrimmage, and playing fast defensively. And so, in order to do that, they made that change with their offensive coordinator, moved on from Ryan Grubb after one season, brought in Clint Kubiak, who obviously is the son of Gary Kubiak, played in Denver for Mike Shanahan, zone running scheme, wide zone running game with play action working off of that. So they want to get back to establishing the run on offense and being a run-oriented group on that side of the football, and then just playing fast and physical defensively and kind of bringing in bodies that can do that kind of job and create that identity for them. He talked about getting back to having home field advantage. They're 3-6 at Lumen last year, which is unheard of in Seattle. Usually they're pretty strong at home, and so they want to get back to being fast and physical and being able to play good football in front of their home fans. It sounds like they're committed to Geno. Even though he has a year left on his contract, the expectation is that Geno's going to be there moving forward. So that means reworking his deal because they're tight against the cap right now. So it sounds like Geno is going to be a good fit in that system. Geno threw for a lot of yards last year, but he did finish in the top 5 in interceptions, had 15 interceptions, was actually number 1 in red zone interceptions, 4 interceptions last year. So it needs to do a better job of taking care of the football. I think you can kind of put some guardrails on Smith a little bit in having this run-based approach in terms of the offense. Geno is still a guy that can run around a little bit too, so he does offer that threat if they run some zone read stuff. But I think really it's just, with Mike Macdonald there as a head coach, a defensive coach like Pete Carroll, they want to get back to that identity of playing smash mouth football, which, that's how the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
That raises a very interesting question for me. We obviously know the Seattle Seahawks are not afraid to invest in running backs.
Mm-hmm.
John Schneider has to know that this is a loaded running back class. Like, we're not going to do that again, are we? I mean, Kenny Walker and Zach Charbonnet are pretty damn good, but I can't say I'd be shocked to see John Schneider fall in love with one of these dozen good running backs entering the league this year.
You saying Rashad Penny didn't work out for them, first round pick? Maybe we won't do that again.
Hey, if at first you don't succeed, try again, right? At least that's what I think the Seahawks would do.
It's their identity. When the team was at its best, Marshawn Lynch was leading that offense, and you had to stop him. That it stopped. It started and stopped with trying to stop Lynch offensively if you were playing the Seahawks. So would I be surprised if they selected a running back in the first round? Yes, because as you mentioned, Walker's still there, Charbonnet is still there. I think they're a pretty good 1-2 combo. But Walker's in the final year of his rookie deal, and he's been dinged up. He hasn't been healthy, for full season. So I could see them looking at a running back. It's a deep running back class, so I think they could get a talented running back in day 2 or day 3. I don't think they need to make a first round investment. I think it makes more sense, to be honest, for them to invest in an offensive lineman in the first round with the struggles they've had up front. Somebody that kind of fits their identity. When they're really good on offense, they had Russell Okung, who was a first round pick at left tackle. They had James Carpenter at left guard, who also was a first round pick. And they had Max Unger at center, who was a second round pick. So they invested in that offensive line. Think they need to get back to doing that.
I completely agree with you. And yeah, in this particular running back class, you can find starter caliber players into day 3. I would guess maybe perhaps even someone like Cam Skattebo, a little chance for some shameless self promotion. And look, I mean, you are writing about Cam, who
Yep.
spoke at the combine today, but even if you weren't, if you've ever watched Cam Skattebo, the Arizona State running back, Marshawn Lynch does come to mind. The way that he absolutely cannot be tackled, the contact balance is out of this world.
Yep.
I can absolutely squint and see that vision if the Seahawks are trying to get back to that style of play.
Yeah, he runs angry. He's the Tasmanian devil out there with the football, just spinning, defenders off of him. The one cool thing about him though is he has soft hands. He can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. So he offers that dual threat both as a physical runner in between the tackles and a guy that on third down can catch the ball out of the backfield and make something happen out in space. He's not running at the combine this week, so that would be a concern if you're NFL scout. Is his top end speed? Although you're getting him more as a short yardage and guy that can kind of pound it. And I would imagine you'll pair him with somebody that has the speed and ability to get outside. But teams are going to be interested to see what that 40-yard time is. And you're hopeful that he can be 4.6, or under and not 4.7, 4.8. If he's 4.7, 4.8, I think that was going to be a little bit concerning for teams. And then maybe he drops a little bit in terms of his draft stats.
I'm thinking about all my old scouting buddies I've met over the course of my career who say just hit the stopwatch when he gets to the 38-yard line. You'll get the time you want. If you want to draft the
We'll try
guy.
to catch him up here.
Yeah. Hey, we can fudge it because look, obviously, I don't know if you want to draft a running back that actually runs a 4.8, but I've watched Cam Skattebo's tape. I'm down for that type of physicality and second effort every single time. I'll just hit the button like half a yard earlier than I need to. It's fine.
I agree with you. If you're one of those teams that's interested in drafting him and you need the number in order for the GM to sign off on taking him at a certain spot in the draft.
So let's say offensive lineman in the first round, and then John Schneider just adds like 3 of these running backs to his draft class. I could picture it perfectly. I'm sure Mike McDonald, the very defensive minded head coach who has a vision for what he wants his defense to be, might take issue with that, but I can't rule anything out with the Seahawks and running backs.
Yeah, agree with that. And I think one last thing I'll say, in talking to Snyder, is they want to get back to the kind of those gritty football players that they had, early on. When they had those late round picks that they had so much success with, whether it was Cam Chancellor, Doug Baldwin, Richard Sherman, those day 2, day 3 draft picks that had that chip on their shoulder and played with their hair on fire. Devon Witherspoon is one of those guys that certainly brings it defensively. They need to continue to find more pieces and guys that bring that type of energy on the defense and offense side of the ball to kind of create that identity that they're trying to get back to.
This is probably a conversation for later in the offseason, especially. Yeah, I mean, we'll wait till free agency and the dust settles a little bit. But just talking about this with you, it sure looks like the NFC West is going to be a meat grinder in 2025. I mean, Stafford will be back with the Rams. I agree with you. That's a team that should be on the short list of contenders. Right off the 49ers at your own peril, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And then the Seahawks and the Cardinals both took big steps last year, and I expect them to continue that this year. I think this should be one of the deepest and most competitive divisions in football.
Yeah, I agree. Sat in for the media availability with Niners GM John Lynch. They say they want to get Brock Purdy done, that they've already started negotiations. They also want to bring George Kittle back, sign him to an extension. He's one of the foundational pieces for that team. They expect Trent Williams to come back for another season. So that's good in terms of their offensive line. They can keep him healthy. And then obviously, they've kind of given their blessing for Debo to find a new team. And it sounds like there's a couple teams that are interested, according to Fox Sports Insider, Jordan Schultz, Texans and Washington Commanders are showing interest in Debo, which makes sense, based on those teams' ties to San Francisco. So yeah, I do expect the Niners to be better. I mean, it really was just kind of a dumpster fire of a season overall. When you look at
Yeah.
all the injuries that they had and all the stuff that was happening off the field, the Brandon Ayuk negotiations that took forever. If they can just stay healthy and have their foundational pieces up there, I like their chances to rebound. And then I think with the Cardinals, it's about pass rush. They need a defensive tackle. They need a defensive end. They need Marvin Harrison to play like he was back at Ohio State. And they need Kyler Murray to play better in the second half of the season. First half of the season, we've seen this. He plays like he's a MVP candidate. And then for whatever reason, second half of the year, he struggles a little bit and kind of goes the wrong direction. So we'll see if they can get things turned around both defensively and just have Kyler Murray be consistent.
It is a lot to look forward to. And the crazy thing is that, like, by the time people are listening to this, it'll be March. I mean, free agency is going to open here in less than 2 weeks. Going to be a lot to look forward to. And I'm guessing, Eric, we will be checking in with you about it before too long, man. As always, I really appreciate it. And get some sleep. You're in Indy for a full week. I know you are desperate for a full 8 hours at this point. So I hope you get it soon.
Yeah, definitely getting the full indie experience, which means staying out late and talking to sources. But we'll sleep later when we get back home.
Exactly. All right, man. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, man.
All right, I am joined now by veteran offensive tackle, Miami Dolphins offensive tackle, Terron Armstead, 5-time Pro Bowler. I'm curious, man. 12 years in the NFL. You've been doing this for a long time. I'm sure you know there's a lot of speculation about what your future might look like. Before I get into all that, I'm just curious, after this long in the NFL playing such a grueling position, we're about to be in March. At what point do you start to feel good? Like, at what point does your body start to feel normal and you can put the grind of last season behind you?
I love that question, Dave. It makes me feel like you care. I love it.
I do.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do, but it's a rare question, really. So I appreciate it. It depends, really. The season comes with a lot of different challenges, a lot of bumps and bruises. So it'll be an individual response depending on who you ask. For me, like typically, and this it's like a damn to my career. I've never been to the Super Bowl, so after the Super Bowl, I usually feel a little better. And then it's a process after that. Some guys have off-season surgeries that they've been putting off during the season, and so if you're going through that process in rehab, it'll take a while, of course. But just the bumps and bruises of the season, the shoulders, the neck, those things start to wear off about 2-3 weeks after you finish that last game.
So I'm curious about that too, because obviously in this day and age, playing football professionally is like an 11-month out of the year job. Like, guys are back in the gym already. You're getting ready for, the off-season programs at facilities are going to be starting up here in a little bit. And as a veteran guy, and as you weigh your future, like as we get to March, do you start to kind of feel the itch of like, okay, hey, like if I want to do this, it's time to start thinking about that and start getting back into a routine? I mean, mentally, what's your thoughts on that approach?
Yeah, I think as you get older, that it starts earlier. It starts like right after Super Bowl, because you get into such a routine, and you're moving your body a certain way. You're keeping your mobility up, and you're keeping your strength up. So as you get older, when you take long breaks, it's harder to get the engine back going, and it's harder to get back to that baseline. So the guys maybe year 8 and up, it's not as much downtime as others would think. You have to lift, you have to get active and stay in shape, or else it's a hole you're putting yourself into that it's not fun to get out of.
How do you balance knowing that versus knowing what it takes to get ready for an upcoming season versus taking the time you need, weighing your options, making sure you feel good about what you want to do next before you hop into it.
Yeah, it is a balance. It is a balance, and you definitely want to get away from the game. And when I'm saying like staying in that routine, working out, you can be on vacation, but you got to hit the hotel gym, you got to hit the resort gym or whatever. You have to. The younger guys, they can go on these benders. They go to Turks for 2 weeks and do whatever, you know what I mean, and run up and down the beach 2 times. They feel great. But the older guys, the dinosaurs of the league, we gotta stay active as active as possible.
Do you have a moment, whether it's from like it could be from a season, it could be from an off season, whatever? Did you have a moment where you were like, I'm not 25 years old anymore. Like I can't get away with the approach I used to have.
Yeah, no, getting out the car, it's just it weighs on you, man. And you go through so many seasons, so many games and practices and workouts, and it weighs on you for sure. Like you start to feel the change happen. When I was 21, I ran 4.6. You know what I mean? I'll run 4.6 now in the 30, maybe. So it just changes, and it's actually it's beauty in it though. It is, because you have to change and evolve, and you have to find new ways to win. You have to find event ways and use your intelligence and use your experience to win and play at a high level. So that's a challenge within itself, and I think that's the beauty of it. And you get a guy like Brady, Breeze, and LeBron, the way he's playing right now, and just finding new ways to do it, because you're not the same athlete that you was at 21. It's life.
And look, like I'm not looking for an answer. I understand everything that goes into the decision of whether you want to continue your career. You do that whenever you want. I mean, if you want to announce something here on the show, I'd be happy to talk about it. But I'm
glad you're open.
Thank you so much. That's really not what I'm looking for. But I am curious, like, and you hear a lot of different rationales when guys weigh the end of their careers. And again, it's the idea of like, do I want to get up for 9 more months and another training camp and all of the bumps and bruises that go with the season, all that good stuff. Some guys, it's, am I okay, with my skill set diminishing? Like you'll hear some guys retiring and saying like, if I couldn't play at an all pro level, I didn't want to play anymore. I'm curious for you, what weighs most heavily in your mind when you sit there and think about what you want to do?
All the things you just mentioned, Dave. Honestly, all those things play a part. It goes into the decision, and then you add the outside sources too. I have 3 kids. You got family. You got all those factors. So it's a lot of ingredients that goes into this pot to continue to play or to not. And for me, like, I never want to be a guy to toe the line. So if I make that decision in March, I can never question it again for the rest of the season. So if I'm still questioning, do I want to do it or not? So, because once I make that decision, this is what I'm doing. We're locking in. I'm going into the training. I'm working out. Like I never want to go back and forth. So until I feel that strong, like, discernment of my decision, I keep it open. I feel like I've earned the right to have some time and grace to do that.
There was a report this week during the combine up in Indy that you were planning to or talking to the Dolphins about dropping your contract figure a little bit to give them the flexibility to do what they need to do, which gives them the flexibility to not have to make a decision on you. Can you talk a little bit about that process, that decision, what went into that, and why you wanted to do that?
Yeah, no, it's so much love and gratitude to Miami Dolphins. That organization has been first class and incredible. So I'm extremely appreciative of everything they've done for me and my family and a lot of other guys in their life and careers too. So we just were able to talk through some scenarios and situations, and then ultimately what we came down to was the outcome that we decided on. It was actually best suited for all parties. So it allowed the Dolphins some more free space in the cap, which I'm all for. Like, I'm all for the improvement and betterment of the team. So that's no question. And then it allowed me to be on the team still, so I can decide what I want to do, whether I'm coming back or not. So they've been graceful. Like I said, they've allowed me time and space to consider what I want to consider, and for them, like I'm all for the betterment of the Miami Dolphins. Like I want to see the organization win a Super Bowl and the fans to stop talking crazy about us on Twitter. I want that. You know what I mean? So um, it was a mutual conversation and decision that I think worked great for all parties.
I'm glad you touched on it, so I'd love to ask you about it. Obviously, it's been a frustrating stretch in Miami, I would say. I mean, this was a team that they pushed hard to build a winner these last couple of years. It obviously hasn't worked out as well as y'all wanted it to. Kind of feels like, you know, there's a situation here where they got to deal with the ramifications of that, right? Whether it's, you know, releasing guys, whether it's finding, you know, space under the salary cap. There is still a lot of talent on that team, though. Like that is it's a really good roster, but I feel like the talk around the Dolphins feels a lot more bleak or frustrated than you would guess based on the caliber of the players on that team. As somebody who's been there and who knows, who maybe be there again this year, what do you view as the next step or the priority to fix that and to get the Dolphins over that hump?
To me, it's like you bring in these pieces to create a team that you feel contend for a championship, and you do it unapologetically because why not? Like that's what we're here to do. We're here to win. The goal, the objective is to win a championship. So it's not like I wouldn't want to be on a team that's not the case. That you're not trading for the Tyreek Hills of the world. You're not breaking in Terron Armstead and Bradley Chubb. Like I wouldn't want to be on that team. That's the goal of every season, to go out and win a championship. So there's only one team that does it. The other 31 teams fail collectively. Only one team put it together and they win a championship. The other 31 has to find a way to do so. So if you have a team that's playing it safe and we're not gonna do X, Y, and Z, even though it helps our chances, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be involved with that type of situation. You're supposed to go all in. That's my feel. Like you're supposed to go all in year after year. You make the numbers work, but you want to win a championship. There's only one way to do it.
I've said it half a dozen times. Obviously, it didn't work out the way y'all wanted, but I'll never slam the Dolphins for trying everything they can to get to that point. I'm curious to see what they do next. The other thing I wanted to ask you about that is just, and it is what it is, unfortunately, but you hear buzzwords around the Dolphins like culture and like accountability. People got all types of stuff to say about when y'all have to play in a cold weather game, all that good type of stuff.
Yeah.
Not only were you there, but you've also been on some really great teams in your career. From your perspective, I mean, like how seriously should we take that? Do you think there is a culture problem in Miami, or how far away are the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel from addressing that, correcting it, getting past it?
We don't have a culture issue in Miami. Some narratives that have shown face, like it's up to us and the team and what we have on the schedule to put them to rest. You know, can't beat a good team or can't win in the cold. Like, we haven't beat many good teams. We haven't won in the cold. You know what I mean? So like, it's a narrative that exists, but it's up to us to address it and correct it. Culturally, I love where we are. I love where we are. This year had presented more challenges than the first two for sure. It did, and that comes with losing. That comes with frustration. We had some injuries. Our quarterback was out, and we had some ups and downs for sure, no question. But culturally, I love where the room is. I love where the building is. We have an environment that can win. Like absolutely, we do. It's just a lot of pieces a lot of moving parts has to mesh at the right time in order to do so. And like I said, one team gets it done. Like one team gets it right, and we want to be that one team for sure. Like no question. It's hard to do, but we don't have a cultural issue, and like I said, those narratives is up to us to address on the field. Nothing I can say here or on Twitter or Instagram that can address those narratives. It has to be proven.
I wanted to dive into the state of like O-line play with the guys coming out. I feel like we need like another 50-minute show to do that.
Let me know when we're doing it.
I would love to have you back. Until then, I'm going to toss you an easy one that I'm curious about. Unfortunately, O-line play is it's very reputation based, right? Like, not everybody's like watching the tape. Not everybody is paying attention to this. And so it's hard to break into that category where like the average fan knows who you are and knows what you're doing. Obviously, we know that you're a badass. Everybody knows about Lane Johnson. Yep. I would say, that there's like a hierarchy of guys. I'm curious for your perspective. And, talking about older players versus younger, who are some like younger unsung offensive tackles that more average and more casual fans of the game should know more about?
That's tough because some of the younger ones that like jumped into the league and has been dominant, Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater, those guys, they are getting the notoriety and they're getting the postseason accolades too. My young boy, the rookie, Patrick Paul, I have a huge amount of admiration for him and his work ethic and the direction and trajectory of his play and career. Pat will be one of those names. Like he will be for sure. Whenever that time comes, he's somebody that goes after it the right way. He's worried about the right things. He asks the right questions. His desire to be great is what will make him great. And so Patrick Paul, he's one of those names, and I'll leave it there, honestly.
I love it. And like I said, I got plenty more that I want to get with you about. We can't do it right now. But like I said, anytime, whether you are a Miami Dolphins offensive tackle or doing something else, I'd love to have you back on anytime, man. Terron, I appreciate it so much.
I appreciate you, Dave. Thank you.
This episode of the NFL on Fox podcast is brought to you by Daiya Pizza, featuring dairy-free cheese made with the innovative Daiya Oat Cream Blend. Let's talk about game day snacks. Pizza is a must, but if you've ever doubted that a dairy-free option could match up, Daiya is here to change your mind. Thanks to their Daiya Oat Cream Blend, you can get all the creamy, melty goodness that stretches and melts just like dairy with a rich, savory taste that perfectly complements every bite without any of the dairy. Their thin, crispy crust is the foundation for bold, savory toppings, and the standout? Their cheese, made with Daiya Oat Cream Blend. It's rich, stretchy, and melts just like dairy cheese. So whether you're hosting a big watch party or keeping it low-key with family, Daiya makes it easy to enjoy dairy-free eating while delivering everything you love about pizza. No commitment to dairy-free eating is required. Daiya pizzas are designed for everyone to enjoy. Make your next pizza night or game day spread FOMO-free. That's fear of missing dairy. Visit DaiyaFoods.com to learn more or grab Daiya Pizza at major retailers like Whole Foods, Kroger, or Walmart. Check them out on Instagram or TikTok for even more inspiration.
All right, that does it for the show. Thank y'all so much. We will be back next week as we get into our off-season schedule. Like we were talking about with Eric, free agency will be here before you know it. So much to talk about, so much to preview as we get set to see how the league is going to maneuver once free agency opens. Looking forward to that. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to hear all about it. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We will be here throughout the off season, recapping all of the big news, everything you need to know. So go find us there. You can find us on YouTube as well. We're on all the social channels at NFL on Fox Pod. Wherever you get your news, your information, podcasts, you get it. You can find us there. I appreciate it so much. I will talk to y'all next week. Thanks again.